Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing the Season 4 episode and our episode flashback here, Power Ponies. So we're finally up to, this episode 6 here of Season 4. So if you're new to us and first time watching here, pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to go back, we're going to discuss the episode, and we'll sort of... We'll talk about, give our opinions on it, what we thought of it, kind of starting a little more broad, starting with like story and stuff, and then working our way into more specific things as we go through go through the episode today. So I'm Rain Shadow. I'm joined by a few people if they want to introduce themselves here.
Allegedly, I'm Xena, but I don't know.
I'm Jay Smith.
I'm the man with the sexy voice, Mr. Ben!
And I'm your balls for today.
So yeah, today Power Ponies is the episode. So what's everyone's initial thoughts on Power Ponies?
Needed more Megazord.
Power Ponies is the episode that made me stop watching the show.
I love how everyone just goes deathly silent after that.
No,
Not shy, but I see why people don't like it, but I personally didn't mind it too much. I
It's
still
kinda
think they
one
could
of
have.
those, yeah, love it or hate it ones.
Yeah, I don't see it as I'm gonna stop watching this show kind of bad. I mean, I think there's plenty of other episodes that I think people might point at as a bigger reason, but you know,
it was
Different
really the
strokes,
straw that
different
broke the camel's back. I love how every time I say something negative about this show, everyone's just like,
No,
hush of silence. You guys are weird.
No, it's actually kind of funny because I think this is like the first time we've ever had someone that actually say such a thing on Triple E. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, could you like extrapolate on that maybe?
For what I haven't seen it in like coming on 2 years or something. But
Holy hell! The first time another first. We've actually got someone who doesn't watch the episode along with me. Hooray!
That's okay. Ben never watches the episode, reviews the episode before we do this anyway. So.
Yeah, I actually have a copy of that episode downloading right now. That's a plus.
Well, you're doing one better than me. I don't even have that. I mean, I could go on Netflix, but I mean...
Why go on Netflix when you can go on Usenet? Either way, piracy aside, yeah. This was the episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic that pushed me over the edge and made me stop watching the show as often. And I really haven't watched any of the newer stuff to this day. It really peaked around season 3.
That's fair enough. I mean, I didn't mind the episode at all. I will admit, I mean, the episode kind of ran contrary to my expectations. I was kind of expecting more along the lines of a Power Rangers parody rather than like a Marvel DC superhero. But I was okay with what we got.
I think the interest. Well, actually, I'll wait till we get to writing for that because.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was just kind of a fun, it wasn't a completely serious episode. It delved into Spike's character a little bit in terms of characterization, but it was just one of those just kind of fun episodes. I thought just not really anything in a bigger picture.
it was pushed as quite a sort of a fairly big sort of event episode. There was, if I remember rightly, the Hub did actually have quite a bit of promotion leading up to this episode. Whether it deserved all that hype, I'm not so sure, because it you know, in terms of sort of where I would consider this as episode, it's sort of middle of the road for me. I wouldn't say it's particularly great. I wouldn't say it's particularly awful. But you know, I think the problem is we've got spoiled in season 6, because I think they, you know, it's taken quite some time for them to really get a good handle on how to make a good Spike episode, and this was sort of the first sort of tiptoeing steps in the right direction, but it ultimately it sort of, it was tipping into the area of trying to make Spike more legitimate, but the problem is that the focus was still mainly on the main 6, and that kind of took away from perhaps what they might have been trying to do with this. But I think that might have something to do with the writing with this, considering that this episode, unlike many others, had 3 actual sort of writers, whereas sort of you might have 3 members of staff on like the writing team. Usually you'd have like, say, 1 or 2 doing like the story, and then you'd only have like 1 or 2 doing like the teleplay, whereas here it was actually 3 writers just in general for this episode, which I think that might have been sort of a too many cooks spoil the broth kind of thing in places. It's odd. I think they were trying to do a couple of things, sort of 3 or 4 things with this episode, and I think that perhaps they should have stuck to maybe 1 or 2 instead.
I mean, I don't know. I think it kind of pretty much did 2 things. It was kind of a superhero homage parody kind of thing, just trying to have fun with that whole, you know, ridiculous I mean, it's a pretty ridiculous concept of an episode. It's not really like a very grounded episode in terms of what's happening here. Even in the MLP universe, it's kind of one of those wacky, you get sucked into a book kind of thing, which is always kind of an interesting concept. And it kind of balances that again with the whole Spike situations, like kind of dealing head on with kind of, is Spike useful to the main 6? Is he of any use to them? Which I think, you know, is a valid question to raise for his character. And so it kind of uses this kind of whole wacky comic book world setting and homage and parody to kind of frame around, you know, putting Spike in that kind of literally a sidekick role in the comic book, and sort of having him being able to kind of surpass that, and say that no, you know, Spike, that's not really what you are. And I mean, I kind of like what it did. It's a really wacky kind of out there episode in terms of what it's doing, but it was just something that I found really fun to watch, and it hit all the kind of the right kind of parody elements of the superhero genre and all the beats.
I think the sort of the biggest comparison that you can probably have with this in terms of sort of, you know, taking beats from sort of other media is probably the Mysterious Ne'er-do-well, and that's also an episode that got a very mixed reaction. So I think whenever MLP decides to sort of parody something, it's always something that's not necessarily always going to sort of hit the right notes with everyone.
But I can understand a lot of the very specific negative reaction to Ne'er-do-well. I mean, I think a lot of it's, you know, blown out of proportion just because of how the internet is. But I mean, I can understand where the basic argument there is coming from with how the main 6 kind of went about teaching Rainbow Dash a lesson in that. Was kind of, you know, a lot of people didn't like the way they went about that, which I can totally understand that for it. So I mean, I can get a lot of the negativity towards that episode. I mean, with this one, it's kind of like, I mean, it's not a great episode. It's not like it's something that's doing something very good or complicated story wise, or even something that great character wise. It was probably one of the better Spike episodes at the time, but of course, that's like Matt had mentioned, it's been surpassed by that.
That's not exactly saying much when you consider that, you know, the previous season you had what's that Spike episode that everyone hated that I kind of didn't hate?
Spike at Your Service?
That's the one. Yeah, Spike at Your Service, because the things with Spike at Your Service, while I didn't really like the Spike bits in that episode. I kind of liked it, other than saying it's a complete train wreck. Hey, if there was one thing that I can definitely say up to season 3 that I was disappointed with the show was basically how they were writing and how they were progressing with Spike. I mean, I don't think
because they really weren't
about it. No, I mean, it just wasn't working for him. I mean, they were giving him these episodes. I mean, he actually had a reasonable amount of, screen time in season 3. Admittedly, it was a shorter season, but, even beyond that. So it was like they were trying, but it was just not working. I think it's just they had to had to rethink quite a few times before they kind of got it right with Spike. And this was probably the closer that they got to getting it.
It was a start on the path down,
but it was
better.
It wasn't like anything major. It was like, is Spike useful? Well, that was kind of the problem. Was the episode at the end of the episode? The answer to that was we're not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, they pretty specifically gave an answer to that. They said that Spike can be very useful to the main six, but he's not always going to be, the main, there right in with them helping on every single thing.
No, I guess I think that's what they were trying to do, and I think for the most part it works, but I don't know. I think that's the thing that makes it a bit muddly to me.
Yeah.
I know there are people that were actually upset about how Fluttershy really goes off the handle at the end of the episode, but I just basically point to everyone saying, well, watch the season 1 finale. It's not really that out of character for her to do what she was doing. It does take it to up to 11, but then again, they're in a comic book world. Isn't the whole
That's kind of her power. That's kind of her power. Is it's kind of having a feedback loop where she's having this anger, but then it's feeding back into that Hulk kind of persona that she has, and it keeps building.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a case you're in a comic book world. It's gonna go up to 11. That's the whole idea.
I was just about to say, I mean, her superpower actually does make sense if you think about it. I mean, the Incredible Hulk seems to be like the very last hero one would associate with sweet, delicate Fluttershy, but you take into account her previous rage moments, like you said, like Best Night Ever, as including Dragonshy and putting your hoof down, and you kind of come to the realization that Fluttershy is actually very similar to Bruce Banner, and Saddle Ranger is just equivalent to, the Hulk. Fluttershy is emotionally depressed, she's socially awkward, and Saddle Ranger is just bold, assertive, and maybe occasionally bullying that emerges when one pushes Fluttershy a little bit too far to the breaking point. And then, of course, plus what set Fluttershy off in the first place in the episode was the fact that Maniac was bullying someone small and harmless for no reason. And Fluttershy has very good reason to hate bullies, especially considering she was a victim of it in her fillyhood.
In terms of what Tim was saying in chat there about Spike, I mean, I definitely agree. It was really overblown. And of course, I mean, you can tell that just by kind of the whole running visual gag joke of him stepping in the bucket multiple times throughout the episode. But it kind of played into where the episode was going, and not to mention the whole thing about the whole comic book world kind of cranking things up to 11. I think the whole thing about this episode with Spike, especially going forward, is this episode pretty much dealt head on with Spike is there just as a comic relief side character, sidekick. Pretty much dealing with that head on, and kind of went on to say, no, Spike isn't necessarily that. He can be, but he can be a lot more. And so I think it's like I said, it's kind of starting that way to like Tim saying, for more episodes. It wasn't the same as previous episodes where he was just incompetent and then learned some lesson from his incompetence. Here, he was shown to be able, hey, I can take charge of this situation. I can save my friends. I don't have to sit here on the sidelines and just say, oh, I'm not useful. I'm the comic relief. I'm not one of the rest of the main six. But here he was able to overcome this and actually help to save them in the end. And I think that sort of starts Spike down that path of those future episodes like Princess Spike and of course the Gauntlet of Fire episode.
The important one.
Yeah, and Equestria Games this season. Yeah, that's true too.
I think Equestria Games is I think Equestria Games, looking back, was probably Spike's most important episode. And while Princess Spike did get quite a bit of hate still, I think other than that episode, after Equestria Games, after Equestria Games, I think that Spike episodes actually improved dramatically, and I think that perhaps this was sort of like the very sort of tipping point of when Spike actually started to have sort of meaningful episodes that were actually worth watching, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of what this episode did. Is it didn't necessarily have Spike doing a lot of the stuff like he did in Gauntlet of Fire, where he's taking charge and being competent and stuff, but it set him up and told Spike as a character, you can be more, you can do more, unlike the previous episodes, his previous episodes.
To be fair, we all have to start somewhere, really. I mean, you gotta learn to crawl before you can walk. If that's...
I think the frustration with Spike is that it took well over 100 episodes for them to really get it right with him, and I think it's a fair frustration to have, to be honest. But to be fair, considering most of the other characters they got a really good handle on, like straight away in season 1. I mean, you've got to remember, Spike only had one episode in season 1. It was right near the end, and a lot of people didn't like it. And
I didn't like it.
Yeah, you didn't like it. You've written like almost a thesis to me about how much you didn't like and what you didn't like about that episode.
Well, it was more like how they could have made it better.
Well, yeah. To be fair, to be fair, the fact that it was almost a thesis just proves just how many things you thought were wrong with it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the thing that frustrates me with this episode, I think, with Spike, is they started to sort of make it the story of him, and then they kind of sort of switched gears and made it sort of towards the end. It was sort of Fluttershy a bit, and then a bit of Twilight, and a bit of. I think
it was kind of baby steps, yeah.
It was a bit, I think, in terms of the writing for this episode, it was a bit schizophrenic, and I think that was possibly down to the fact that you had 3 writers.
Well, I do think that was kind of done on purpose, though, and I kind of, like I said, it was kind of baby steps where he wasn't necessarily the one saving the day and, like, ultimately defeating her in the end, but he played a big part into... But like he played a big part in making that even happen, because he was the one that was able to actually save the main 6 so that they could save the day. And that's kind of where they were going, kind of going with at the ending there. Like, Spike, you aren't useless, even if you aren't the one there saving the day here in the end all the time. You were very important to the group and helping them be successful as well.
And then we get the sort of bizarre moments where we actually have Spike sort of almost mentoring Starlight. I mean, that's just bizarre to me.
Well, of course, it means how amazing how far he's come.
Arguably my favorite. It's arguably my favorite moments in the season 6 premiere. So,
and yeah, I think that's kind of what one of the main problems with Spike, I think, is early on. And yeah, we're kind of in like a character. We're kind of starting out with character discussion here, I guess. But oh well, it doesn't matter. Kind of have to in this episode. But yeah, I think early on, just with the early seasons with Spike, I just don't think they knew exactly what they wanted to do with him, because they have him set up from the beginning as this kind of younger brother character to Twilight. And they play with that a lot, and that's kind of why when they start giving him these episodes at the end of season 1 and in season 2. It's very much dealing with him being young, naive, incompetent, and then learning a lesson in the end. Like, he messes up, he screws something up, and in the end he learns a lesson about it, because that's what younger brothers do, and he's this younger brother, and he acts like that all the time. But the problem is, as that goes on through the seasons, it gets stale really fast, and you don't want to keep seeing this character who now is pretty much, he's obviously one of the main characters of the show. He's always there. You don't want to continuously see him fail regardless of whether or not he's learning a lesson at the end. And so I think that's one of the really good things about, maybe starting this episode, but then going into future seasons where they actually start making him be more competent and succeed and stuff, and have other trials other than just he fails at, making Applejack, cleaning up for Applejack, or he is very jealous of Twilight's new assistant, from Alswell and stuff. And I think that's what they changed, and I'm glad they changed it, because they kind of got into this groove of him being this younger brother, but then they kind of rose above that in later seasons here and made him grow up more or less and have that competency.
All they've done, though, is basically disappoint Sperity fans.
Oh yeah. Oh, they've incredibly disappointed them. I remember seeing some of the drama that the Sperity fans ended up starting on Dirty Boru because of this. It's
Wow.
If there's anything that people can start up drama for, they'll start up drama for it. Like,
It's true.
holy crap.
I think what Sperity fans seem to remember is, like, Rarity's sort of pretty much almost a grown-ass lady. Spike's a kid. I think they're kind of forgetting that.
Well, it doesn't help that the
It's
show
like
is
when they
teasing it
actually
so
put-
hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you have Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash shipping. It's like,
Oh god, that's even worse. At least that's even worse. I mean, the problem is the show kind of set this up as, sort of that, kid having the crush on the older girl or something like that.
He's got a boy. Yeah, he's got a boyhood crush on an older girl.
And again,
there's nothing
playing
wrong with that inherently.
And again, it's playing into the Spike is the younger brother thing. That traditional kind of the younger brother has a crush on one of his sister's older friends or something like that. But of course, when that gets involved with a fandom like MLP, that little cute little thing that they put in the earlier seasons starts to be like, oh, are they going to get together, or we got to ship it, and then the show is kind of in a little problem area where it's like, well, we never intended to take this any farther. It's just kind of a cute little side thing. This, the younger brother having a crush. So now what? And then of course people get disappointed.
I highly doubt that the male adult viewership is a huge consideration in the creation of these episodes.
Well, I mean, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. When people start getting disappointed when they don't do anything more with Spike or Rarity or something like that, or do something against it or whatever, it's like, well, what were you expecting?
I was expecting them to snog on the couch. God damn it, I'm disappointed. Fuck you, M.A. Larson. Fuck you.
Even though you had no participation in this season at all, still
No, I know. It's still his fault.
still his fault.
Thanks, M.A. Larson.
Oh,
Can we quick?
Go ahead.
Can
No,
we
go ahead.
talk about writing then?
Yeah, that's what
Is this-
I was going to go into. Yeah.
Because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this episode was written by Megan McCarthy, Betsy McGowan.
Yep.
Is that the correct pronunciation? And is it Charlotte Fullerton?
Yes.
Yes.
Why are you able
10
to
points.
name those off the top of your head? That's scary.
Well, I can tell you now, Betsy McGowan was a writer for a show that's absolutely hated, Canadian. It was a rip-off of Dexter's Lab, and I can't think. Johnny Test.
Johnny
there
Test.
you go. She wrote for Johnny Test, and everyone looked at that and went, "Holy shit, we're getting a writer from Johnny Test. This is gonna fucking suck." And,
Wait, what? Johnny Test was a ripoff of Dexter's Lab?
Yes, it was. Almost like note for
Oh. My childhood feels hollow.
note. Johnny Test was freaking awful. It really was.
I-
And this is for someone that didn't really grow up watching it because I was too
I
old.
grew up watching it and I loved it.
Terrible show.
Frankly, I have never I've never watched it really. I've never had any
Oh,
even as a kid, I'm like,
episodes.
even as a younger, I'm like, oh, it seems like a ripoff of Dexter's Lab, and I never watched it because of that. So I don't know how good or bad it is, but I've of course heard things about it. Yeah, if you want to, Betsy McGowan actually, I'm not exactly sure what involvement she had with this episode because her credits are pretty much she is the co-creator of a TV series, Camp Lake Bottom, and then she is a production executive for Johnny Test, not like a writer or anything, a production executive, and here's my Matt, you're gonna love this one. She was the executive in charge of production at Kids WB for Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue.
Not Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Am I going to have to play the theme
Fuck
song for
that
you?
Show. No, fuck that show. Fuck that
What
show
is
with
Shaggy
garden
and
rage.
Scooby-Doo Get a Clue?
Oh.
The worst Scooby-Doo incarnation ever.
We already did
It
that
was
for
Flash
Riffs, right?
animated when Flash animation sucked.
Oh. But yeah, and then she wrote this episode. This is like really the only thing she's credit with as an actual writer. So I'm not exactly sure.
The only thing she's ever done with MLP, I don't know why she was brought in for this.
So I'm not sure what she did for the episode.
Charlotte Fullerton had been with the show since season 1 because I think her first ever episode was that was the Rarity one, the dress one, weren't it? I believe was her first ever episode of the show.
And of course Megan's been.
Which arguably I would say was Charlotte Fullerton's best episode, actually, funnily enough. Not that her later ones were terrible or anything, just I think that was her best episode. But this was her last ever involvement in the show as well, actually, this episode. Because I do know that her husband, because I know when Putting Your Hoof Down was being written around about that time, that was when Charlotte's husband passed away. And that's why writing duties for that episode were passed on to Meriwether Williams. But she obviously came back for this episode to do at least some writing here, but she's not been back ever since.
See, I think Charlotte Fulton, I think she wasn't around for season 3 either, as far as I can remember.
But wasn't she doing Ben 10 at the time though?
Yeah, so she did Putting Her Hoofs Down, then she came back.
It was Omniverse, weren't it?
That's what I'm saying. She wasn't here for season 3 either, and then she came back and wrote this episode, but that was the only other episode she wrote of the show since. So it's like it's kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to see what was happening writing wise behind the scenes, like who was originally captaining this. Why Charlotte Fulton? I mean, I'm assuming.
I would say Megan was.
I'm assuming that Charlotte might have actually been asked by Megan to come on and either write the episode or help write it because she has a big background in superhero writing. She's done a lot of writing for superhero shows and obviously like you were talking about with Ben 10. She was also married to Dwayne McDuffie, who was the person who died, who was obviously a big person in superhero story writing. So I'm assuming that she was brought on because of that, and to kind of, if she didn't actually write the episode, to provide a lot of feedback to make sure that, hey, we're hitting the right kind of notes with what we're parodying here, and we're not missing anything that would be good for parody. Megan obviously probably had a big hand in kind of getting the concept off and helping to write it. I guess I have no idea why they brought Betsy McGowan on, just because of her other credits don't really make sense.
And what's weird is she was never ever did anything else with the show sort of afterwards either. It's kind of strange. I mean, a lot of people have sort of been worried about saying, "Oh, season 7, there's virtually none of the writers are coming back." But you've got to remember that this show, I think, maybe with the exception of maybe seasons 1 and 2, it's always been a case of being freelance because all the writers are self-employed, but essentially, and they're basically doing work for hire. So
yeah, and that's why you'll see a lot of writers jump and do other shows. Like if you get an opportunity to write for a show, especially if it's multiple episodes or maybe some important part in writing that show, you're going to take that opportunity as a freelancer because it's work. And you can't just wait around for maybe the show you really want to write for. Even if you really liked writing for My Little Pony, you can't wait around for necessarily that show to give you a call back to write another episode. If you get an opportunity as a writer, you have to take it. And sometimes that means you see, people responding, writers responding on Twitter like, no, unfortunately, I wasn't able to write this, write that season. I had other things going on. It's not that they didn't want to necessarily. It's just the
Or
nature of
sometimes
freelance
something better-
business.
Something better comes along. I mean, like Amy Keaton-Rogers stopped writing for MLP for the simple reasons that Disney picked up the phone, and you're not going to say no to Disney.
Yeah. And again, that's
you know.
goes back to the whole thing of a opportunity you just can't pass up there.
Gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
Why did I imagine that voice coming out of Elsa's mouth when you said that? I have no idea. I've been at work too
In
much.
that exact voice
Well,
as well.
Yes, in that
Yeah,
exact
I can
voice.
answer that question, Rain. You thought it was in Elsa's voice because you just can't let it go.
Oh God.
She saw an opportunity and she took it.
Oh.
I have been waiting on making a joke like that for the last half hour.
I'm glad I could provide the opportunity. Story-wise, again, this going back to sort of the overarching plot or lack of thereof for this season. I commented back on this during when we were talking about Castlemania. This episode also begins. Well, first off, it takes place in the castle, with the exception of obviously the whole comic book world. But it starts with the whole crew going to Celestia and Luna's old castle again and fixing it up, just like they were starting to do in Castlemania. And it's just, again, one of those things where at the time it just really seemed like, okay, so this is where they're going. Twilight's a princess now. She needs a castle because, that's how things work. And so because toys. And it just seemed natural that that's where they're going here, and they're fixing up the castle. And in this, and I can't, it's been a while since I've watched this season, but I don't know after this if we actually ever revisit the castle again. It's
No, because they pull a castle from out of their arse.
But I mean, obviously at the end of the season. But I'm talking about before. I'm talking before that, kind of. Even any other time this season, I can't remember another episode where we go back to. It's kind of just weird that they have two episodes here at the beginning where they're kind of heavily involved in the castle, and then suddenly it just is gone and it never mentioned again. It seems like they have been setting up the season to go somewhere, but at some point along the line it got changed, and they just couldn't change these, the settings for these past episodes.
Actually, I think we did get to. There was a scene in a later series. I think it was Inspiration Manifestation, where Spike gets that book from the old castle.
Yeah, that weird room that he just manages to happen across that's hidden. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
That scene was the definition of an arse pull. I have to admit.
Well,
when we get, I can't wait till when we get to it, because it's probably like the only bad thing about that episode.
It really is. It doesn't Spike find that place by literally leaning back in a chair, so it's almost literally an ass pull.
Yeah,
it is like you could have a dictionary definition of arse pull, and it could be just that scene. That's basically what it was.
Did you say ass pull?
Yes, ass pull.
Ass pull.
I've never heard of that phrase before.
Look it up on TV tropes.
No, that sounds like you made it up, Matt. It sounds like you lied, and you're just making things up again.
I just like pulling my ass.
Well, that's your decision, and I am okay with whatever sexual kinks you prefer. It's just not for me.
Oops.
It's just not for me, It's like
Welcome
being
to Triple
burned
E,
alive
where we
in
talk
lava.
about sexual kinks.
Oh,
Um.
I think that's the worst time we have.
But yeah, it kind of just seemed weird to me. I guess we did revisit it later in the season then. But it's kind of weird that we kind of were around the castle quite a few times this season, and it, after the finale, it just kind of never went anywhere.
I think it's another. I think it might well be a casualty of basically the mandating of Hasbro. I think Hasbro obviously turned around and said, "Look, we're going to have a castle set, obviously, because we've now mandated Princess Twilight, because that's what happened in season 3." And they're like, "Okay, how are we going to make this actually work?" And I think initially they were thinking of, "Oh well, obviously we've got the old castle of the two pony sisters that we mentioned in season 1. Well, perhaps we could have like the main 6 tidy that up and make that into Twilight's castle." And then obviously Hasbro probably went, no, it's got to be in Ponyville, we can't have it in the Everfree Forest. So that's why they pulled one out at the end of the season, perhaps. That's the only thing I can really sort of think that might have happened.
It might be something like that, or heck, I mean, that it could be something from Hasbro, or that could just be a decision just from the creative staff, like, oh, okay, well, if we want, maybe as they're kind of developing where they're going with her in future seasons, sort of like, okay, we want her to become like the Princess of Friendship, and she's, maybe going to go out and the main 6 are going to spread friendship around. It makes more sense for her to be housed in Ponyville, which is, kind of a bastion of friendship and, all the different 3 types of ponies living together, rather than, like Matt said, in the middle of the Everfree Forest.
I know, it'd probably be better, because then they have to fight a load of Timberwolves and stuff to get there. They've got to prove their worth.
Wait, what are you talking about? Like, they all the main 6 in Castlemania just casually walked over there, including Fluttershy and Rarity.
Well, yeah, they walked over there together, though.
Well, I mean, but they were in separate groups, though, groups of 2.
It wasn't just Fluttershy and Rarity. Angel was there. I'm sure he'd have been able to protect them.
That's what it was. Don't mess with Angel.
They mess with Angel Bunny, and Angel Bunny fucks you up. Hard style.
Yeah, pretty much. I did like how they did wait to kind of reveal Fluttershy's thing until the very end, and kind of built that up, for it. I guess it offered a nice kind of capping moment to the episode, sort of comedy and parody wise. While we see the whole, I mean, most people I think kind of knew what her power was going to be, from we first got in there and heard, Spike kind of describing the characters, so. It was kind of a nice, like, little payoff moment.
You make Fluttershy angry, and she starts sounding like Pinkie Pie. Magic, that. No, seriously. As she starts to get angry and angrier in that scene, she goes from Fluttershy to Pinkie Pie to what the fuck is this demon hellspawn?
Well, yeah. I think I might be able to answer that, Matt. Fluttershy's vocal range is the really, really high range of Pinkie Pie.
Well,
you want to know why?
Being the same voice actress as well, yeah.
Yes.
Being voiced by Angel.
Why.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the whole reason. There's no theory. There's no conspiracy. It's just the voice of truth.
Another thing, speaking of kind of season-long things going on that I noticed with this one. This was another thing. There's a lot of kind of weird things in the beginning of the season that seemed like they were building up to stuff, and they weren't. and like I said, one of them was the castle, and that kind of went nowhere. Another interesting one was just the I mentioned this before in Castlemania and some of the other episodes, where there's so many episodes where they kind of end it on sort of a stinger or a cliffhanger. Like in Castlemania, we had the Pony of Shadows or whatever is kind of appear at the end of that. Last week we kind of had that fake out with Scootaloo not getting her cutie mark. The episode, what was the other one that had one? What episode am I missing? Daring Don't. That one didn't really have one. But then this one, again, it ends with it cutting back to the comic book, and it just kind of magically disappears. Like, okay. It's kind of like, are they setting up for something, or is it just disappearing just because it's not going to exist anymore? I mean, I guess the whole point was like just to remove the comic book from the universe, so it's not like we can ever do this again for any reason. But I kind of almost felt like it was all these, when you have so many of these weird endings at the beginning of the season, it almost makes you think that it's building up to something, but then in the end, everything was nothing.
It's just like me in bed.
Oh my gosh, Matt, that was brutal. British people.
DM, that's actually a funny point. Yeah, it goes after you pay for the money. When you're done reading the comic, it just kind of goes back to the comic store, so they're just kind of ripping you off.
It would be more like an iterative scam, though.
Yeah.
It would take a really long time to execute, though, so I don't know if most people would have the patience to make something like that a long con.
Oops.
You know, actually, I was looking something up here, and I was actually finding an alt theory on this particular comic book. So the comics transfer ponies into another dimension, and apparently the only way to escape is to defeat the main antagonist. But here's the thought: what if instead of like an actual comic book, this is kind of like a magical Dungeons and Dragons book, where the villain isn't so much a villain, but more of an in-character dungeon master whose job is to make sure that the players reach the end of the story. If a player is having trouble, then the villain dials things back to make it easier on them. If players are unsure what to do, then they basically act out long enough to point the players in the right direction. And if a player, for some reason, can't perform as the plot demands, then the villain fixes things up so that they can. So, like, for example, like the plot calls for a fight scene between the Power Ponies and the Maniac right at the very beginning of the comic. When the Maniac makes her entrance, the main six respond to simply just listening to Spike's exposition instead of meeting her challenge head-on like they're supposed to. So what does Maniac do? She starts throwing nearby objects at him to get them to fight back and get the story underway. So.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of predisposed, like, to... You have to continue the story, come on.
That's almost... there's... It almost... that saying it that way almost makes me think of, like, just... I don't know, like, some parts of the more esoteric parts of, like, ideas behind Brave New World and things like that. If in the comic, is their free will actually free?
That's deep. But yeah, I mean...
Do they actually have agency inside the comic? Is the comic actually a real thing?
I really wouldn't know. I'm just going off of what I just found here for like a potential theory. It's just one potential idea on how to explain the situation. It for all we know, it could be that
could be Discord messing around with them.
Yeah, or it could be that the comic book that was sold is just a comic shop whose sole purpose is, trap people inside or something like that, and maybe force them to find their own character inside or something like that. I have no idea.
I know, the shop pony that sold Trixie the Alcorn amulet came in and sold that comic shop that haunted book. That's my fan theory.
Well, I mean, at the end of the episode, Spike says he bought this from a place called, like, Enchanted Comics. It was, that's not the exact name, but it was, the name of the place was pretty much like Enchanted Comics, like, that's what they sell, is these weird kind of comics. It's almost like, and judging by this...
hiding in plain sight. Who does he think he is? Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin?
But for going on the whole Dungeon Master thing, it could be like these comics are actually designed and meant for people to go, want to go in and experience a comic for real, and the whole thing is designed around getting them to participate in this and eventually to escape. Although, of course, having to actually defeat them to be able to escape at all is a little dark.
Well,
it's like ultimate mode.
It's kind of another thing, like I said, it could be a situation where it's like a simulated Dungeons and Dragons, where if they can't actually get to the ending, then there may be like an out that's programmed into the game that they could possibly, get out of the world at any time, maybe just to return to it later, if need be.
Tim.
Oh God.
I wasn't gonna make the joke. I thought about it, but I wasn't gonna make it. So
Twilight goes into the comic store. Ooh, a comic about Celestia. I'm gonna take this one home. Oh no!
Well, we can say one thing about that if that did happen. She would be exposed to a lot of plot and exposition.
Exactly.
But yeah, another reason why I was mentioning something like the simulated D&D thing was a couple of points here. Another point is, like, say for example, the plot calls for Humdrum to bail the Power Ponies out in time for the climactic showdown, but Spike is still moping about being the useless sidekick. So Maniac uses a suspiciously well-timed, not really insult. It's really more of a speech indicating how bad he sucks, to coerce the main six to sticking up for him and inspiring him to action. And another thing is that she basically says that she doesn't paralyze Spike or Humdrum on the excuse that he's not worth the effort. But the real reason might be that the paralyzer's a special hairspray. Well, Spike's a hairless dragon, so it would probably be useless against him to begin with. So it's probably why she preferred to demoralize him instead of utilizing a weapon that, when failing, would convince him that he's not as useless as he once thought. I'm probably overthinking this, but
probably, but it's fun. Yeah, the monologue. I did like the part of the episode where Spike pretty much is able to set up the final trap and save the day because the Maniac's just monologuing. It was nice to see. One of the things I did like is how the Hinge Ponies pretty much had a timer to respray the heroes when the spray effects were off. Like they had it down. They were not terribly and totally incompetent.
I just wish that it was more like it was a cream that they rubbed on and they became superheroes. A bit like the new Justice team from Futurama. With Super King, the best one of the three.
Super King.
That song is ingrained in my head. Go, 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 new Justice team. Who's the newest Justice team? The new Justice team. I could sing
my
the whole
God.
of that, but
I bet you could.
Myself.
Someone make a 10-hour loop of that, please.
Make it happen.
If you make it happen, I will give you 4 of Rain Shadow's dollars.
They're worth a lot in the UK.
No, I mean I will take Rain Shadow's money and give you 4 of it. I have a hack in the DMCA.
So I get 4 Applejack toys? No, I'm fine, thanks.
No,
those are worth a lot more than that.
you get 4 lawsuits for copyright violation.
Go Justice team.
Oh boy!
Cutie Mark Crusaders, legal right defendants! Yay!
Yeah, D9, you know, that's kind of what this episode does. It kind of plays around with all the tropes, and you know, and pretty much parodies all of them pretty well.
I think the one of the things that doesn't make me laugh though is like you got all most of the main six, you know, kind of struggling with their powers and that, and you got Pinky going, "Oh, this is just a normal day for me."
I know one of the interesting things I remember seeing when the episode first premiered was, you know, a lot of confusion of why Twilight was having so many problems using her powers, because I mean she's freaking like top tier unicorn, and the powers are pretty much coming out of her horn. But I mean, really, it's kind of a different. It's not really unicorn magic she's trying to use. It's some sort of crazy fictional superhero power, yeah, of shooting ice out of her horn.
I like how you said that, as if, you know, a magical unicorn with wings is it is totally, you know, everyday and normal. Yeah, that's
normal day for me.
That's the normal setting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very similar to Castlemania, where I think it's a little bit more character in building involved than Castlemania was, because Castlemania was really just kind of a wacky, you know, sort of haunted house kind of story, but there wasn't any character building at all in it. It literally was just kind of a self-contained story.
We weren't the Angel Bunny as a bit of a dick. Oh, hang on.
Wait a second.
Oh, wait a minute.
But at least this one here actually did have some like character moments in it for Spike. You know, not as many as future Spike episodes will have, but it still did have that character focus on it, around the same kind of like you were talking about, Tim, episode as Castlemania.
I think the one thing that I do still enjoy about this episode, though, is just how delightfully over the top and cheesy Maniac's performance is in this episode. I know that's moving a little bit onto voice acting, but I just, in terms of the writing, they make a very cliche, I would say, but to a point where it's done so that it can be completely hammed up to like the nth degree.
Yeah, a lot of ham. A lot of ham in this episode.
I actually, that is one thing I do wish they do. You know, the fan series Guardians of Harmony figures. I hope that they actually perhaps do some sort of fan series Maniac, like with all like the hair and that. I think that would be a really cool figure to do in that style.
I thought they did, or maybe it wasn't the Guardians of Harmony series, but I thought they had a pretty good.
I know they did have a power pack.
Oh yeah, because they had the whole. I forgot they had the whole. Yeah, they did. Because they had the whole actual Power Ponies line of toys, and she was in one in there. It was pretty good. It wasn't quite as good as the Guardians of Harmony ones, but it still had the crazy hair and stuff.
I'm still surprised that they only ever made like an annual based around the Power Ponies. Then they didn't make like a mini comic series. I'm kind of disappointed in that, but thinking about it, it would be the IDW writers, and yeah, maybe that was probably for the best.
Well, it's not just that. It's kind of like, where do you really go from it? I mean, this episode works as kind of a one-off thing because it's parodying, it's boosting that kind of, superhero tropes up to 11, and the performance is up to 11. But what do you do trying to make a series out of that? I mean, you're pretty much just going to be making a standard tropey superhero series comic, and you could make it work, I guess, but at the same time, you're just kind of delving into what's going to make this worth it, what's going to make this stand out.
It's going to be well trodden.
Yeah, exactly, and it works for this episode because it's just one episode that's obviously just parodying the genre. But to actually go and make that a regular thing, you wouldn't be able to do it how it is. I mean, I guess they could have made it like a comic series, like they did, like with, it wouldn't be the main six, it would be with the actual things. But again, it's just,
It's not the same,
yeah.
and it's
not the same.
You kind of move. It's sort of it's getting close to sort of fan fiction-y territory. Which, to be fair, that's what a lot of people consider the IDW comics. So wouldn't be no different.
But yeah, it's just
I've got no. I'm sorry, but I've got no time for the IDW comics. I'm sorry. After everything that's gone on there, I just haven't. I just can't.
Anything else for the story that anyone else has? I think we went through everything that I had written down. For story, at least, writing. Character discussion. I we pretty much already dove into all of Spike's character discussion already. But we could I do kind of want to just tack on sort of a short discussion or reaction to how, of all of the characters that the main six were portraying in the comic, and kind of what everyone thought about those.
I mean, should we start with Applejack, because she was essentially basically Wonder Woman?
Yeah, she was kind of. I saw her as a kind of combination. Yeah, exactly. I kind of had a combination of Wonder Woman and Batman for her.
Yeah, it was the sort of the lasso, and it just felt kind of obvious with her, I suppose. But
Well, most of them were pretty kind of head on.
I mean, it's gonna. I think whoever they chose for Applejack, it was always going to have to be someone that was sort of more level-headed. It weren't going to be sort of one of the more wackier superheroes, because I think Applejack has always been like a voice of reason and more level-headed than sort of the rest of the main six. So
yeah, I mean it makes sense. I mean, like, whenever it's kind of a lot of these. Sort of, I think a lot of these things have been portrayed in the fandom before the episode.
I wasn't expecting Applejack to be Arm Fall Off Boy, and yes, Arm Fall Off Boy is a real character from a real comic.
What did you just say,
Matt? What is this?
Arm Fall Off Boy.
What is this superpower?
Did you say Arm Fall Off Boy?
Yes, it's a real character from, I think it's Marvel or DC. It's a real character. Look it up. Comic books, you gotta love them.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely, for Applejack, I mean, because she definitely had those kind of, that feel of, she doesn't have any superpowers, but she has that kind of tech. Although she kind of does in that case with the magical telekinesis rope, but the rest of her sort of powers were a lot more grounded, like Batman was. Fluttershy, of course. I mean that's probably the easiest one to pinpoint.
Fluttershy was the Blob, wasn't she? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, let's move on.
The Blob, yeah, like every episode, man.
No. Fluttershy was the Hulk, obviously.
I think, and that one probably fits as one of the best fitting. It's because again, it's both kind of opposite of her character, but it also fits really well with kind of what we've seen in the past from her. It's like she can, especially when it comes to animals, she can get very ragey, like we saw, like Matt mentioned earlier, in the season 1 finale, when none of the animals want to have anything to do with her. She kind of freaks the fuck out there too. And for here in this episode, she doesn't do anything, or even she just can't get mad until the maniac swats that butterfly or firefly down.
It was a firefly. Yeah.
What makes it even funnier is that Flutterhulk was basically a lot of fan art as it was even well before Power Ponies was even a thing. Power Ponies basically just canonized the idea.
Yeah, and that's what I said before. It's like a lot of these things, especially like I said with Applejack and Batman, were I think already kind of fanon already.
The worst thing about it though was that there was a lot of bulk biceps Fluttershy shipping afterwards. So.
Oh God, I didn't know, and I don't want to know. Oh.
That was the big downside to that.
Yeah.
So shall we go with Rarity, who was pretty much Green Lantern, I would say.
Yeah, I think I'd seen before someone mentioned another superhero she was like, which made sense as well. But really, for me, the Green Lantern's the one that I recognize and thought it similar to.
Her horn ring doesn't let her touch anything that's not fabulous, or something, right?
I think it was more a case of because Rarity sort of got like creativity, and I suppose you have to sort of think creatively to fight using the ring with Green Lantern. So I suppose that was the idea.
Well, I mean, she's a creator, so they wanted to give her a superpower that lets her create things. And Green Lantern's probably the most well-known one that fits that bill.
Perhaps we can ship, but we could always just ship Spike with Radiant. Oh yeah, Radiance looks like Rarity. That doesn't really help very much.
I thought you were gonna say we can ship Spike with Green Lantern. I'm like, what? Sure, why not?
Well, we can do that too. Yeah, sure, why not?
If it fits, it ships.
I do love how Rarity's Green Lantern powers was very, how can I say this? Very utilitarian. She makes a tea set, a feather duster, and some stairs, but it's also by the fact that once she gets the hang of it, she's just as competent with her powers as like Green Lantern would be with his own.
Mm-hmm. I like everything that she creates has to be some sort of outrageous, fabulous kind of deal as well. So yeah,
we move to Pinky.
Pinky, another I think fairly obvious choice. With the Flash. Yeah, that obviously fits her because she didn't really did she?
Just Pinky on. It's just normal Pinky on sugar.
I was gonna say, did Pinky actually gain any superpowers in this comic book? Because we've seen her do this outside of the comic book. We already know she has some weird teleporting powers. So.
I think it might actually just be Pinky bluffing a superpower.
It's just, I didn't get nothing. Fuck, I'm just gonna have to make one up.
I guess it's like in Magic the Magic Duel with Trixie where Twilight's doing all these things and Pinky's just there playing like 6 instruments. And it's like, well, she always does that.
Yeah, that's just Pinky.
It's just Pinky. But Trixie doesn't know that.
What we don't realise is the true magician of Equestria is actually Pinkie Pie.
Pinkie Pie is actually exists at a higher level of being than everyone else on the show. That's why she appears to be able to be zipping around. She's actually staying still. The whole universe isn't moving fast enough to catch up with her.
I thought you were gonna say like Pinkie Pie doesn't move; she moves the universe around her.
No, the universe around her has to catch up.
Then Rainbow Dash is a little more obscure one. I think. I think Thor, definitely some inspiration from Thor. You could definitely argue Storm from the X-Men as well, being that she has that power over like sort of like weather and the tornado and stuff. I think either one of those are kind of where they pulled inspiration was from Dash.
You know what? I've actually just thought of a character that they could have had for Fluttershy instead of the Hulk, Aquaman.
Oh, ouch, Matt!
Because she's totally useless.
Wow.
No, well, no. No.
Wow, what an insult! I'm surprised Matt would insult Fluttershy so much.
No, it's the command. No, it's the fact that
I get what you're saying. Yeah, because she can command animals. I can understand that. Yeah.
Yep.
But doesn't Aquaman only refer to like specific?
Anyway, have you not played Injustice? Aquaman is like the most awesome character in that game.
You say that.
It's like they were trying to make up for 20 years of him sucking.
You heard it here on Triple E first, folks. Straight from Matt's mouth. Fluttershy is useless and everyone hates her.
Yep, that is what Matt just said. Those are the exact words that he said in that exact order, and they definitely were not put into Matt's mouth whatsoever.
And
I can confirm
Fluttershy,
that because I was here.
and Fluttershy has a hook for a hand as well.
And she built a turret.
So you're saying that? So not only are you saying that Fluttershy is useless, you're saying that she's a terrorist as well.
No, I'm saying she's Torbjorn.
Oh God. Oh, someone needs to record Torbjorn's lines in Fluttershy's voice now. Oh. Oh God. And then we have Twilight. I think Twilight's probably the most kind of obscure one. I kind of saw like maybe sort of Cyclops, but I mean maybe mixed with like Frozone from Incredibles, just because ice.
Where is my super suit?
Spike, where is my super suit?
So so what you're saying is that she's basically just Mr. Freeze. She should have used ice puns all the time.
Yes. Free ice to meet you.
Yeah, no, that's
Cool-
the reason why
cool
her
party
power wasn't
maniac.
working, because she wasn't using enough cheesy puns.
Matt,
Yeah.
I will find you. I will manually cross the English Channel in a rowboat to find you for that bad
Cross the English
pun.
Channel. What, are you currently in France then?
No,
I know Americans don't know. You do realise that the bit of water between America and Britain is called the Atlantic Ocean, right? The
Yes, I
channel's
do
the
know.
bit between the channel's between England and France.
I didn't mean to say it like that. I meant to say
You'll just basically come and
your
find
British
me.
tricks will not work on me.
You know, it's just it's that one place. No one knows where England is, because no one cares.
Latu Barada Nicto.
And then I guess finally would be Spike, is obviously kind of like a Robin, stereotypical sidekick character.
What, Robin's useless? Robin's useless? Wow, you're being a right arsehole to Robin. Oh, are you talking about Robin in Teen Titans Go? Ah, makes sense now.
At least, oh God, no. At least they didn't all get sucked into the comic book world and start singing about waffles.
Do you like waffles?
God, that's a better song, though. I'd rather listen to that song.
That's actually a better song than the waffle song that was in Teen Titans Go, because Teen Titans Go waffle song didn't even have any lyrics. It was just waffles on repeat.
I was gonna say, it has more lyrics than waffles.
I can't come up with any waffle puns. All of them are really just half-baked.
Get out.
My mind is kind of fried. I don't really think I could explain it.
Oh God.
That joke was not waffly versatile.
Oh. That hurts.
Get out. All of you, get out.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like these just end up in us putting each other into giggling fits. Apparently that gets us views. That's amazing. We have ascended to the level of PewDiePie shit posting.
Where go my puns?
I guess the only other character we haven't really talked about then would be the Maniac herself.
Her backstory was kind of reminded me of the backstory of the villain in the Catwoman film, which is kind of worrying because the Catwoman film fucking sucks.
I like the backstory. It was ridiculously, like, stupidly over the top weird. Just like, oh,
the Catwoman film.
Yeah.
Just like an over the top comic villain.
Yeah, sort of like the Joker. I guess that would be one of the closer ones that you could kind of compare her to in some ways. Just, I mean, her
No, I
name
compare
is
her
the
to
Maniac.
I compare her to Sharon.
Yeah.
Sadly, I compare her to Sharon Stone from the Catwoman film.
I don't think I've seen that movie, so yeah, I wasn't here for that.
You're
riff.
lucky. We
Yeah.
have done that. For
I know it
years.
was. I wasn't here that week, so.
That movie, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad like the other things we've done for that, where it was just.
What the fuck?
It was a nothing movie. To steal some words out of the great "I hate everything," may he hate it truly everything.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
Can I just say that I hate everything? Does that make me meta or something?
That's too
No, that makes you British.
But he's British.
Yes, it's because two British comedians are like antimatter.
Oh, it's not
That's how it
even
works.
because I don't. It's not necessarily because I don't find him funny. I just find being negative all the time like that just exhausting.
I don't like all the standing around.
Let's see.
Drawing board.
I can't do Fluttershy's voice for shit. I was reading Overwatch voice lines from Torbjorn. That failed.
I thought it was just Pinkie Pie on a bong.
But she had. I mean, she had the kind of like Mr. Ben said. She also kind of had that kind of sedusa kind of the hair. I love the hair. Kind of using it to walk around.
I kind of wish they did something with like the hair being an obstacle that they went through, but at the same time, I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going in terms of the fandom. So I'm like both kind of sad they didn't and glad they didn't at the same time.
Yeah.
I like her mane.
No, like they could be walking and then they suddenly the ground gets really thick, you know, with all the mane everywhere, and then they notice it and then it's too late, and then they're grabbed by the mane and like hoisted around, but Fluttershy isn't grabbed, so that's when she saves them. I don't know.
The punchline is Fluttershy is awesome. I'm glad we've agreed with that.
But she's Aquaman.
Yeah, but have you not played Injustice? Injustice makes Aquaman awesome.
Aquaman had that one game that was like Superman 64, but on the GameCube and worse.
Yeah, but no one knows about that because it was Aquaman. So that's
So you just proved the point.
It was the cloak of anonymity. Hey. Wait.
So you're saying Fluttershy's a background. So you're saying Fluttershy's a background pony then?
Oh shit!
Says the person that likes the actual background character.
Oh,
I don't know. At least Applejack is an
Hashtag shots
Aquaman.
fired.
At least Applejack's portraying a superhero who's useful.
At least Rain's been kind of honest to the pony that he likes.
Well,
Get
I could have been
honest.
shy and said, well, I like all of them, but, I like one more than the others.
I like all the ponies.
Well, to be fair, I do. Except for Twist. No one likes Twist.
Fuck Twist.
Oh, I can find plenty of examples of that.
No, please no.
oh.
Oh God, let's move on. What does everyone think about the voice acting? Voice acting for this episode.
Ellen Kennedy clearly had a lot of fun voicing Maniac.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I had to say.
And Andrea Libman did a great job of voicing Royd Rager as sort of, as she was transforming basically to go hulking up, because all of that apparently was all done by Andrea on her own. So,
well,
props for that.
Although I believe they've pitched it down.
They pitched it a bit towards
her
the
voice
end,
didn't go that low. But
what you don't realise is that Andrea Libman's actually able to voice the devil.
Funny thing is that Andrea Lindman did like a fair bit of scenery chewing when she hulked out, and then Saddle Ranger literally began to chew the scenery.
This is true. But yeah, she did great. I wouldn't be surprised if she threw her voice out after that, because that was pretty intense.
Past, present, or future?
Wait, what?
You said it was intense. Which tense is it?
Okay. I've never heard that. Usually when someone says intense, I hear that like a tent pun. So
No.
it took me a second to get that.
I was. But yeah, from what I remember,
it may be tense like a coil.
well, like snake hair lady, yeah. The maniac. I remember the voice probably was one of the better parts of that episode, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But it really just felt like they sort of hyped this all up, and then they never really reused any of it. Like, not really the castle, not really any of the no shout outs in the season finale if there was like some sort of boss fight that involved having to channel those powers somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know. It felt like it could have been used more.
Yeah, it was really much and pretty much the comic disappearing at the end of the episode pretty much states that that kind of was a one-time deal. It was never really mentioned again. very self-contained episode.
It seemed to have a weird episode to hype up so much, because it's probably the most boyish episode of MLP we've probably ever had, unless you want to count the season 4 finale, which, go ahead if you want, but I mean, there's only really that one scene, that season 4 finale has that you can kind of sort of level that at, really. But
the funny thing is that they didn't even make toys for this episode until like last year.
A good season and a season and a half after it happened was like, you didn't realize it's a bit late.
So,
then again, this is the company that didn't really make anything show accurate from season 1 and 2 until like season 4 or 5 was out. So
this is probably the easiest episode to level the. They did it because Hasbro told them because they wanted to make toys, but at the same time, Hasbro didn't make any toys for it until way after. So I don't think really that toys had really much to do with this episode.
I wonder if this wasn't anything to do with toys, and this was actually an idea that Megan had, and they didn't really. And then Hasbro went, "Oh shit, we've got to make toys for this," and it sort of took them like a year to conceptualize them.
I don't think they didn't really do it. They didn't do it really anything from the show until the new person that's in charge of the toys, like 2 years ago, when that new person took over. That's when they started rolling out like the Power Ponies line and the Friendship is Magic line and all the Guardians of Harmony thing eventually. Yeah,
Guardians of Harmony line is the best.
I think that's when they finally realized, oh shit, there's a lot of cool stuff in the show that we can make a toy from. Yeah, but I always found that weird that after it showed, like, I was heavily expecting toys from this episode to be released, and it just never happened. I always thought that was really weird, and until last year when they finally had a whole line for him, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
It was a bit half-hearted. It was like one line, and they've never gone back to it ever since.
Well, it was
strange.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be a whole separate line. It's just like now they're kind of doing yearly sets. Like that year it was Power Ponies. This past year it was Wonderbolts. So like it's the same exact kind of thing, but they're kind of focusing on one episode or one group of characters for that particular, because they have like 3 or 4 different lines now, and so and I believe all of them are exclusive.
So they're gonna have the Fluttershy line next year.
Well, that's different. That's the friendship collection one, where they focus on one of the main 6, like they had Applejack, Pinkie Pie, then this year's Rarity, so it could be next year Fluttershy for that one. But that's a different line from this kind of line where they had the Power Ponies, and it's the same exact line, I know, because they used the same exact molds for they had the really like big figures, like that came in like a 6-pack of all of the main 6 dressed up as the Power Ponies, and they have that exact same pack, but it's they're all colored Wonderbolts now, but yeah, I mean, I guess they finally realized, oh shit, we should make some toys, and they had some pretty cool, lineups, figures from them. Not as neat as the newer molds and newer stuff, but It's kind of like I'm really surprised that came so late. Let's see. Humor. What does everyone have to think about the humor in the episode?
Oh man, I'm pretty sure it exists out somewhere. I don't remember what happened to it, but there was that scene where someone fan dubbed the Leroy Jenkins clip of Rainbow Dash just barging in.
It doesn't surprise me.
Well, so much for the element of surprise.
And of course, the whole bit with Fluttershy holding out after she's just angrily raging and smashing the maniac's machine. She'll and taps her tiny hooves together. Well, because Fluttershy's gigantic, where her hooves are still flesh.
Oh,
The hilarious thing about that is, by the time Fluttershy was actually destroying the, really going to town on the machine, it was already destroyed anyway from the bounce back of the blast hitting the actual machine and knocking Maniac away from there. It was already destroyed then, but no, she really made sure it was actually destroyed.
Just special mention goes to the fact that, again, that she just starts tearing apart the Doomsday device with her teeth. And
no.
the other 5 members, including Spike, are just staring in shock at her as she's just going to town on that.
They were all making mental notes to themselves. Don't fuck off, Fluttershy.
Yeah, of course we like I had mentioned, we had that whole running gag with Spike in the bucket.
Perhaps that's why Angel Bunny is such a little shit, because he knows that if anyone tries to do anything to him, that he knows that he's going to have Fluttershy basically protecting him, and that's how he gets away with being such a little shit. It's all Fluttershy's fault.
No, he just does it because he's a little shit. End of story. I really liked it at the beginning when they're all cleaning the castle. Eventually, near the end of that scene, you see Pinkie Pie kind of scrubbing the castle throughout the scene and breaking various laws of physics. And when he comes to the end, she just kind of appears going through the background, scrubbing it upside down, like floating upside down with her hair, scrubbing the floor while she kind of walks in the air. It's really weird.
She's using more comic book powers in actually the real world than she was in the comic world.
Yeah. Pinkie actually had the opposite effect.
Just the fact that Pinkie Pie was the one to immediately figure out her powers during the time that the team just figured out, hey, we're all superpowered. She's the one to just immediately figure it out that, hey, she's got super speed.
Yep. She goes and gets some cupcakes. And like at the end, how she appears in the real world with cupcakes again. Like, oh yeah, I had just enough time to go to run to the cupcake shop and back right before we got sucked out.
Likely story, Pinkie. Likely story.
After the rest of the main six struggle to keep from being dragged into the comic, Pinkie just eagerly dives right in. There was
just
also
cannonballs right in.
I just like the idea that Pinkie Pie goes into the comic book world and goes, wow, I got a downgrade.
Of course, when they go in again, going with the whole Robin thing, and Spike has to drop the "Holy New Personas Ponies" quote when they first arrive in the comic book world.
I thought you were going to say he was like Robin in Teen Titans Go, and he wanted to go potty or something.
No, he's like Robin in classic Batman.
all this episode needed was Applejack running, holding a giant bomb over her head, and we would have been set.
No, we just needed the main six to sing the Waffle song.
Oh god.
Well, to be fair, Tara Strong would have had practice.
They wouldn't have even needed to record her again.
Yeah, they could have just used her voice. Hey, to be fair, if Cartoon Network are that lazy to show Teen Titans Go that much on repeat on Cartoon Network,
Oh, that just sounds like it would end in such bad things. That's like giving creative decision to someone who doesn't deserve it.
You mean like me?
No. You would at least do something decent with it.
I would at least schedule something more than freaking repeats of Teen Titans Go. I'll tell you that now.
Yeah, Matt would schedule repeats of Breadwinners.
Hey, the show's got to be a breadwinner for something.
Oh. I really like
pretty
the
shitty price though, just winning bread.
Hey, bread! Don't knock bread. Bread's awesome.
I'm absolutely ready to knock it.
Oh God.
Can we just end these puns before your toast?
We've apparently reached the Rain Shadow is beating himself part of the show.
No, that was me clapping.
Oh. Okay, good. We haven't reached the part of the show where Rain Shadow beats himself. I was hoping we didn't have to stoop that low this week.
In a sandwich.
Oh. I miss the sandwich. I really did like all the kind of like the hair care puns and visual gags in the I mean, of course, her weapon, like Maniac's weapon, is just a giant freaking hairdryer, and they use a giant thing of hairspray to freeze all of the main six, which they eventually snap out of like you would if you used hairspray on your hair, which I found pretty funny.
We also had a henchman who was just as concerned about his hair's rarity was.
Would you say it was his main concern?
Oh. God.
I walked right into that one.
You did. Also, when they finally escaped from the cage in that final battle scene, and Rarity just kind of makes a stairway with her power down, and kind of just does this really prissy prance down it with her head like stuck up. And of course, there's like two or three.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, of course, there's two or three Wilhelms in that final fight scene as well.
It can't be a American television or film without Wilhelm scream.
Yep.
It's just not possible.
It is a legal requirement. It's in the law. Look it up.
It is not alternative facts.
Let's see. How about animation and visuals for the episode?
My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is always known for having good quality of animation and the visuals. And from what I remember, the animation and the visuals were on point, but it really just felt like it didn't make up for the other faults that this episode has.
Mm. Yeah, I really liked all the fighting animation and stuff. I was a little disappointed since they are in a comic world, they didn't kind of go full out and have any of like the bam pow kind of things pop up on screen. I was kind of expecting them to go with that, just since they're literally in a comic. I thought that might have been a little bit of a missed opportunity there. I mean, I guess maybe it's a little overdone, maybe, but it's kind of like if you're going to go a full-in comic parody, You're already doing all the other tropes. I did like the stretching of the models as the main six and Spike are being sucked into the comic. It's some really weird freeze frames you can get from those stretching animations there. And the costume, I really like the costume design as well. I thought that was pretty good for most of the main six there.
It just really is a shame that they didn't end up doing anything with these extensions of the characters.
Yeah, even like we don't really even hear the Power Pony, like the comic, name dropped or anything. These links are loading.
Just imagine like the season 4 boss instead of that was T-Rex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just imagine instead of that, the Maniac comes back and they have to realize their comic book powers in the real world. I don't know.
Yeah, it could work too. I don't know if it would be any better, but it could have worked.
True. It probably wouldn't have been any better than T-Rex, but it would have been like... It would have been better than a lot of other things that have happened.
It would have been like a continuation of that, yeah.
Yeah. Or even an entire spin-off series.
Yeah, that's something I'm very surprised we have never really seen. I mean, there's so many things they could spin off between this or Daring Do, or I mean, there's been a lot of other things too. I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool spin-off series, but I'm always surprised they didn't kind of take advantage of that. Heck, if I was the Hub or Discovery Family, I'd be all over trying to get more program to fill up my schedule.
But
then again,
you could
monies.
just do Daring Do, Trixie, and Starlight Glimmer all as a show. It'd be like the Cleveland show except for ponies. And hopefully with less racist jokes.
Hopefully.
Or do the spin off with the season 5 and then LET and Discord, Starlight, and Trixie.
My chat is being flooded with Pony.
Don't worry, I can get more pony flooded into there if you need it.
Need my pony fix.
Are you sure you want the pony fix?
No, I'm at nothing from you.
Why not me? Why don't you trust me?
I don't know.
What have I done to betray your trust?
I don't know.
Is it because I'm a derpy Boru mod?
Oh no, not that. I'm just past experience. Oh God. Okay. Anything else for the animation? Going much longer. So next we have the music and the score for the episode. So, like I said last week, that wasn't quite as much last week with that being sort of a more emotional character episode. But this week there is a lot more score. Maybe not necessarily a number of tracks, but in definitely the content, since again this is a more action episode, and on top of that also a parody episode obviously of superhero movies, so we and comics, so we get a lot of very much superhero heroic score throughout here, and we have a nice little kind of fanfare motif that's used in all of the tracks here. So we'll kind of start out here, and you should be able to hear that little motif in the first track right away. So let me see. There we go. So this is kind of where we start off the episode. So again, this is kind of Spike just reading the comic here.
There's lots of ambient stuff that Friendship is Magic really puts into the music that isn't really communicated anywhere else in just all of the experience. It's sort of unique in this day and age of dubstep, fornicating toasters, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more thought and consistency, I guess, through a lot of it. So let's see. This next one, I believe, this is where we get first sucked into it. So we'll hear the Power Ponies motif here, as well as a lot of the very kind of generic kind of superhero sounding music as Spike goes through each of the main six and kind of who they are and what their powers are. I believe this is right before he gets sucked in here. And there's that Power Ponies motif. The Maniac makes her first appearance here at the end. And so now we get to her track here next, with some of her score mixed in with the sort of Power Ponies score, but also with them sort of failing at their powers. So a lot of music to accompany that in here. Let's see, and this is the longest track of the episode as well.
This score seems to have a lot more power to it than the other episodes. I wonder if that's because of the name of the episode.
Yeah,
if you listen to the, little nuanced parts of it, you can see, as they're presented out in little things like this, you can really sort of just see how, subtly they would work these motifs in just during the episode, and you never really notice it until you see it in a form like that.
Yeah, and a lot of times it blends in so well with the action on screen that you don't notice it when you're, obviously when you're watching.
I think then that is one of the only times you can say that something has truly excelled at being background music. If you can't tell that there's music in the background.
Yeah.
It just sort of feels right as it's being presented to you. It's really hard to clarify, I'm sorry.
Getting some more of the action score here for the fight. More specifically for Rainbow Dash making it a tornado here.
Welcome back, J.E. Smith.
Let's see. So that's that. You can kind of, definitely like people saying, a lot of inspiration from both like some of Danny Elfman's like Batman score, and also some more stuff like the Avengers or the very heroic kind of Captain America kind of score with like a lot of like trumpets and brass for the main theme of the Power Ponies here. So now we get to them arriving at the Maniac's top secret headquarters. Got a little bit of more of a march here. More into Maniac score there. Now we get to the big fight here with all the hinge ponies. finishes up there, and now we get to Spike's sort of sad moment where it's up to him to save the day. So we start with him moping, and then we get to the part where he kind of gets that inspiration from Twilight's words. Some of Maniac's score here. She's monologuing more here. There we got Spike getting that motivation to try. Finally, Spike swoops in and saves the day. And we get the final battle track here. More of that score for Rainbow Dash's Tornado there. She sucks up some of the hench ponies. Here comes Fluttershy's freak out. There was no music during her actual, like, when she's destructing or going after the giant hairdryer. So we had a little bit of more of the Maniac's theme there as she was kind of going crazy, being wrapped up in her own hair. Now here, this takes us out with one last Power Ponies motif. As they get sucked back into to their world. And so that's pretty much all the score. So it isn't as many tracks as a lot of episodes have, but the thing is that a lot of those tracks are like 3 to 4 minutes long, which is quite a bit longer to have that many of them in one episode. It's because there's just a lot of very superhero-esque backing score for a lot of the scenes while they're in the comic book, and it extends throughout the entire scene and all of those long fight scenes as well. But I think they did a really good job of Warmaster did a good job of kind of matching and homaging or parodying that style of a couple different like superhero composers, superhero films, musics. It gives a nice like fanfare theme for the Power Ponies that is very traditional kind of superhero, but you get a little bit of like Elfman sort of darker score in there and stuff for like Maniac, and for some of those moments as well. So it's very well realized, and it turns out pretty good in the end there. So definitely like one of the better things of kind of off the wall kind of episodes like this is you do get the more opportunity for musical styles that you normally wouldn't fit in this series. I mean, there's not a lot of times where you have like this very traditional, almost cliche sounding like superhero theme that would really fit in the series otherwise. So it's kind of cool to hear that in the series. And that is all for the score. So moving on, what does everyone think of the theme and the moral of the episode?
Have on. Give me one more. Oh, it was right here. I hate it when I have like a bunch of notes and I just lose track of them. Okay, so basically the lesson here is two of them essentially. Just because you're not always needed doesn't mean that you're not helpful. And then obviously you don't need superpowers to be a so-called super friend. And then and obviously don't be a dick.
The most important one of all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! Is that a Valentine's Day card that you just linked there? Because that totally could be a Valentine's Day card if it's not. You don't need superpowers to be a super friend. Happy Valentine's Day.
That reminds me, Hallmark Holiday is next week, isn't it?
It is. Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, as a matter of fact.
Yep. Tuesday.
Cool, we could have like happy, sappy, floaty hearts all over our conferences and stream order for next episode. As I related note, I hear that Bo mentioning yes beyond Valentine's.
Okay, where's my... There we go. So, any final, like, favorite parts of the episode, or anything that stuck out concerning-wise, or...
I like all the comic book. I like that it was a throwback. I like all the silly little comic stuff, like the Maniac Sword, such.
See, Maniac herself is probably one of the best parts of the episode. Just how she was just So much presence, essentially.
I think on that what Tim was saying, I think a lot of it is also, I think what they were more going for would be like everyone can contribute and help out in some way, but don't like beat yourself up if you know if you don't think you're doing as much as some other people, or you can still be contributing to whatever cause or whatever it is, even if it's just a small contribution. It was kind of funny to see their take on kind of the superhero thing. I thought it was just kind of seeing all of them and having these superpowers and those costumes and with the music and everything was just kind of a fun spectacle to see. So overall feelings and conclusions, final thoughts.
And still a decent episode in my opinion. Not one of the best, but certainly not one of the worst either.
I still don't like it. Sorry.
That's your prerogative. I mean, to each their own.
Nobody else has any opinions?
Sorry, I had to step away for a second. I'm back. Was anything being discussed, or was it just silence?
No.
Okay. Sorry. But yeah, I mean,
I posted my 2 cents on the opinion. So.
I overall it was very much kind of in the grand scheme of things, much like Castlemania, kind of a pointless one-off episode that didn't progress anything. Although it was nice to get a little, at least starting Spike kind of on the path of maybe having some more meaningful episodes like we see in Inspiration Manifestation, and of course going forward in season 5 and season 6. It was a good start, and it was a little bit of a breakaway. It was kind of like a turning point kind of for his character, because it directly deals head on with some of his character problems from before, like, oh, he's just a sidekick. Oh, he doesn't help. Does he really help, the main 6 anyway? What's his point? And kind of directly heads on that, and then gives him a way to move forward, saying, yeah, you can do more. You can help them. Yeah. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, even with that, it's kind of just like a one-off slice of life, but not even slice of life because it's like in a comic book. Well, with that, we've come to the conclusion of this week's Triple E episode for Power Ponies. So, thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion. We will be back again as normal next week for Valentine's Day, I guess. Be here if you don't have somewhere else special to be. Yeah, I know I will be. I'll be here.
Funny thing is, next week's episode is more of a Halloween theme than anything else, technically speaking.
Fluttershy has a large love of apples in the next episode. It's all about loving your fellow small creature, even if they're vicious vampire bats. And if you haven't guessed it by now, yes, next week's episode we have reached bats. Yeah, with an exclamation point. Make sure there's an exclamation point in there. because that's the episode we'll be doing. So definitely, some interesting stuff to have. I have some interesting points, I think, to make for that episode. And of course, we get another song. Speaking of Danny Elfman this week, we get a lot more of that in next week's episode. So we will get there then. So we'll see you then.
It's gonna be one hell of a baddie show.
God, I had to get one more pun in.
Had
there.
to get one last one in there.
Oh God. Yeah, maybe see if Matt will be here because you know with Aquaman, Pony Aquaman being his Valentine. I can just say this now because he's already left. So
He got pulled away.
he got pulled away. He had to go save the day.
Yeah.
He got pulled away from my sleep.
Okay, well, anyway, thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next week for Bats here on Triple E. So, goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you, folks.
Take care, everyone.
Don't forget to tip your waitresses.
A very, very important point. Bye, everyone.